Welcome to another episode of the Bandwagon podcast. And today is a guest that I've been after for, I would safely say, over a year. Um,
Hmm.
she is a tech leading catalyst, a media marketing executive who's been involved in the Canadian and international ecosystem of blends of entertainment and media and tech. What you'll come and come into kind of a real synergy in terms of some of the stuff that I talk about on the podcast. And just her resume is just unbelievable. She is a co-founder of so many different tech startups, but for you and I, and hopefully she does goes into it a little bit more. She is the founder and CEO of Future Sync Incorporated, a Megalomaniac Sync. She's the ex-CEO of Billboard in Canada, stroke UK. She's been part of the Rolling Stone industry. So, without further ado, welcome to Amanda Dorenberg.
Thank you so much for having me. That's a very honorable intro. Thank you.
No, sometimes when I've had guests on, and when you just go through the repertoire of work and the sheer volume of work that they've done and companies that they work for, it just brings another reframing of when you've got to do an episode or have a conversation. Because like sometimes you could get kind of imposter syndrome in this kind of work. Have you kind of ever experienced anything similar to that?
No.
Well, that kills that story, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, sorry. No, I just I mean, throughout everything that I've done in my career, I do still feel as though I'm just kind of still getting started. I feel as though there's so much more to do, so much more to give, a lot to give back, especially to, the next generation of young entrepreneurs and artists and media, uh, you know, aspiring media executives. So I think when I say no, I don't have imposter syndrome is mostly because I just I love what I do. I believe in what I do. I believe in who I am, and I'm passionate about just kind of continuing down that path. However, I do sort of feel like I'm just getting started.
Obviously in the intro there was so many different kind of questions that um where I could go into. How would you best describe yourself? Because there was so many labels in that intro, but how would you best describe yourself, especially as the point that you're saying that you're just getting started, and I'm saying that you've covered or you've already done so much?
I feel like I've done a lot in my career. However, I would describe myself as a media and tech entrepreneur, very much a serial entrepreneur with a passion for giving back and just I like to be humble, and I love humble people and those who understand that you may have had success and you may have had all of these fancy titles, but it doesn't define me as a person. It's a part of my journey. It's not who I am as an individual. And I think that that's really important. So that would be how I would describe myself.
I saw when I was reading up upon yourself, the story that came up to me, and hopefully that when we go further on into the interview, it just provides a foundation. But you were never scared to kind of make a decision. So from living just outside Toronto at the age of 16, you've already graduated and you're leaving a big city, a big kind of change of circumstances with there. Do you reckon that kind of resilience and that firmness in knowing what you wanted to do has stayed with you throughout your life?
Yes, 100%. I firmly believe that, I talk about my journey quite openly. So as a young child, my parents struggled with addiction. And, at the age of like 12, 13, 14, I was having to take care of myself and cook for myself. And I had a job babysitting, and I got a job at Sears back in the day, which was a North American chain that is no longer around. But I always had to take care of myself, and I think that resilience just kind of came naturally. And I don't know where it came from because inherently inside of me, like deep within me, I felt as though the situation that I was currently living in at that time as a child, witnessing certain things that you shouldn't have to deal with or make decisions on, okay, do I follow that path or do I, make my own path? I always knew that there was more out there for me. It was a very small town and I just felt like I didn't fit into that world and I wanted to get out as quickly as possible. So I did absolutely everything I could to make that happen. I graduated high school at 16. I started college at 16 and a half and was done my college career by, 18, but I didn't even really show up to my college courses or classes because I was scouted as a model by Elite and IMG Worldwide. And so I would just like write the exams remotely. Uh, and that inherently just kind of the drive stayed with me throughout my career. And it put me on a trajectory to build various different companies, build my own companies. In my 20s, I had an artist representation agency and a model placement agency, which I unfortunately had to close at 27 because I had brain surgery. And then it took me about 2 years to recover. We can get to that.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say we can't just skirt over that for a second. So I'll let
It's
you bring it. You can bring that in whenever you feel comfortable.
yeah, I'm comfortable with it. So after recovery of surgery, I went more into the tech side of things. So my college career was computer programming and systems analysis, and then I did a bachelor's degree in marketing, media, and communications. So I always wanted to kind of blend the two together. And I found that like as a fashion model from my teens into my 20s, I didn't look like everyone else, especially back then. I'm in my 40s now. This is 20 years ago. So I just didn't fit like the rest of the models that were on set. So I would make friends with the production crews and I would ask questions. I would ask the business questions. Why did you hire these people? What is this for? Because often as a fashion model, you don't go into something and you don't necessarily have the whole detail as to where the images are going to be used or if it's an editorial or whatever. So I took that and kind of blended the two worlds of tech and marketing together after I recovered from my surgery in my late 20s into my 30s, and then was part of two ad tech startups that sold to publicly traded companies. And then at 30, we sold both of those by the time I was 34. And at 37, I took over the industry association in Canada, which governed almost $1 billion advertising sector in the Canadian space. And I was their youngest CEO. And at the time, I was building the company AMG, which is called ArtsHouse Media Group, which I'm no longer affiliated with. But we built that company and we acquired the licenses to Billboard Music Magazine in Canada in the UK and Rolling Stone magazine as well in Canada. And 2.5 years into that, I decided I felt very passionately about giving back to the younger generation. So I founded a company, a holding co called Megalomaniac. And underneath that, we have various different divisions. So we have a talent division. We're kind of going full circle back into the fashion world and the arts and entertainment. So we represent talent in fashion, music, and arts. But the talent is all typically under the age of 24. So we're very focused on giving back to the youth. And then we have a not-for-profit foundation called Future Society. And that has a keen mandate to focus on anti-bullying, mental health, and anti-human trafficking. So that's the circle. I do believe that drive and resilience has pushed me through my career for sure.
Yeah, I feel knackered actually hearing all of that. In terms of kind of energy. I mean, also used to be in modeling, but they were balaclavas, so not necessarily the kind of stylistic ones that you would do. Um, a lot of what I see in kind of management and leadership in companies. Um, you almost get the wrong kind of blend in. And what I mean by that is you'll have externally and internally referenced people. So when you know that someone's doing a good job, external ones will always ask you for kind of reassurance, am I doing a good job? An internal one is that they know they're doing a good job and they don't ask for that. If you have too many of one or the other, no decisions get made. in your experience of when you're going through all of these kind of the decision making in all these companies, how did you find the perfect blending in terms of getting an outcome? Because in tech, it can be very binary in terms of knowing what you have to do. There's logic, there's process within that.
Mhm.
But that relationship sometimes doesn't cross over in art. Art is can be very sporadic. It can be a creation that doesn't make sense. How do you find that fusion and that style when you were doing these startup companies?
That's a really great question. And it is very difficult for me as a leader. It comes down to actually just getting to know the people that you're working with and who they are and what specifically fuels them and drives them. Like what is their motivation? Some people who may be more like binary and logic based, perhaps they might be motivated more by fiscal reward. Whereas some of the more artistic individuals and the creatives are motivated more by an emotional reward or something that makes them feel good and makes them, feel valued. So to me, it's really just about understanding the individual that you're working with. And to like in my perspective, I don't even take this into just like a workspace. It's any person that I meet, any person that I encounter in life. I always try to understand them, like who they are, you know, what drives them, what gets them out of bed at night and or in the morning, and what do they want to do with their life? Like, do they have kids? Do they have a family? There's different factors that need to be considered as a leader with different situations with those around you. And so I always try to really just listen to the individuals that are around me and really try to understand what drives them.
Mm. One of the key things that I wanted to kind of ask you about, a lot of the guests that I've had are from the South Asian diaspora, and living in Canada, there's a huge kind of a
Mhm.
music scene, especially from the South Asian community that we see from there. Um, when you kind of, I want to just move a little bit into the music stuff, and I'll kind of bring it back. When you first, what was your? Let's start here. How was your relationship with music? How did that start for you?
I would say it started in my early early 30s. Um, so I kind of naturally evolved into the music management scene. As I mentioned, in my 20s, I had an artist representation agency, but that agency was specifically focused on like photographers, videographers, directors, etc. And with that, you meet a lot of people, you meet a lot of large companies, the parent holding companies of various different magazines that are published. So like the Condé Nasts and, the Penske Media Corps. You also meet a lot of individuals in large entertainment sector. So like the Universal Music or the Sony Music. And someone I was very close to was in a band, and I just started kind of giving advice and helping them out, which stumbled into music management and then just kind of affiliating and building up my contacts there. However, I was still building my tech companies at the time. I was still working on my ad tech companies. So that was always kind of a side thing. And who doesn't love music? Everyone loves music. I listen to every single genre. It doesn't matter. One moment I'll be listening to country, and the next I'll be listening to, hip hop or classical music. It just depends on how I'm feeling. So I think music is just an art that we can all relate to. And with respect to, how did we get involved with Billboard and taking those licenses in the Canadian and the UK markets. It was really for me the business side of things. I didn't actually look at those as music ventures. I looked at them as an entrepreneurial venture. So there was a gap in the marketplace in each of the regions, so Canada and the UK, and we built a business plan. We pitched the business plan. We won the business, and so to me, it wasn't necessarily about the music at that point. It was about the business side of things. It just happened that, yeah, I really like music too.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of experiencing and what we're seeing, especially when I speak to a lot of the artists here, is a new wave of the brown pound in terms of what it's been called. We've seen
Mhm.
a lot of the traditional music labels within the UK, so to speak, who used to have a lot of the rights to the artists,
Mhm.
have now sold their back catalogs to kind of Warner and Universal. And
Mhm.
now we're seeing the likes of Diljit Dosanjh and Karan Aujla becoming super mainstream now. And that
Yeah.
pathway is starting to kind of open out. But behind it, there's still a huge, huge gap between the next kind of tier of artists within it. I think having conversations like this and seeing kind of your experiences and working in a market or a digital era of modernizing that music has always been kind of has been challenging. When you started in your 30s, there was different kind of audiences out there and different kind of platforms that people were using to advertise their music. How were you able to adapt from, let's talk about from the journey from a CD, from MIDI to CD to tape to streaming and that now, because it's constantly evolving and sometimes it feels artists, especially artists in niche markets, may be missing out.
I think inherently, so if you're asking me, my personal journey on that as somebody who was in the business side, it's a bit different because the digital transformation on the business side of things is inherent. If I were to provide advice to an artist who, is perhaps struggling with the streaming side of things or the independent, marketing, it's really about understanding the demographic of who your listeners are and who your target audience, your prospective target audience is. So you have a core demographic for who's already consuming your music, but who do you want to expand that to? And then look at the use cases from, the likes of Karan or Diljit or Gigi or any of the other, very successful artists in that particular space. And even just reach out to them. Like they're all amazing people. They're so humble and kind. And Gigi and Karan were on Billboard Canada's first cover. I was on set with them at shoot. Like they're just wonderful people, very down to earth. And I think artists need to understand that you have to shoot your shot, if you will. Like try to take that leap of faith into yourself and support yourself and really just believe in what you're doing despite what's happening around you and despite what you may see on social media, you may see in, different publications. A lot of the times it's not always as it's perceived, let's say.
But do you find like I kind of touched on it before, where it feels like your gut and your action is very aligned, in when you're making that decision? And some do you get where I'm coming from? I think it's from how others kind of perceive it when the career and stuff is on the line. If they get that wrong, we have it now, especially in the artists in the UK, that we haven't got a large production line, and any new artist that's coming up, they might only have one or two kind of releases, and if you haven't kind of hit it or connected with the audience where they've done everything right, when you're looking at the images there, there's songs there, it's just not connected. And we've only got certain amount of those chances. And this ecosystem in the UK especially is dying, I feel. But like I said, your decision making, knowing exactly of like how to kind of connect and go through, it seems so simple in that side, but I feel the reality is kind of different.
I think that's a fear-based reality. If I'm being wholly,
Yeah.
honest and transparent. For me, sure, decisions are scary and taking a leap of faith is terrifying sometimes, I left as I was CEO of notably the biggest music brand publishing in the world for the Canadian and the UK divisions. And I made a personal choice to step away from that because I chose that I just wanted to focus on something that felt better to me to give back to the next generation. And certainly it was a difficult decision, don't get me wrong. However, if I hadn't made that decision, I don't feel as though I would be wholly fulfilled and I wouldn't feel good with myself. Um, I know we were doing amazing work, and the team there are still doing incredible work with everything, all of their initiatives that happen regionally and globally. I think it's amazing what they're doing. However, for me personally, I chose to focus on something very different, although it's still in the similar sector with art, fashion, music, and entrepreneurship. I I think if you are happy with yourself and the decisions that you make, ultimately the success will come after that. You have to believe in yourself. You have to have faith in yourself. And for me, I was never motivated by money. I was never, and I didn't have money. So this isn't because I have like some trust fund that I get to sit back on. I didn't have money. I had to build everything. I was on my own, as I said, at 16. So I I just feel as though, if you believe in yourself, the dominoes will fall into place, the chips will fall into place, and you'll be where you need to be. Like the universe will put you on a path where you're meant to be.
Hmm. No, 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 I get it. I understand what you're saying, and I get it. And you almost have to kind of admire the bravery in terms of where you get to that decision. I think I discussed this with you previously, where I thought having the bravery to kind of say, yeah, I couldn't do that is also a point of where you kind of recognize it within there.
Mhm.
But what was the difference of when you're having your own startup tech and it's got its own kind of your own companies and you got the values, and then you see companies like Rolling Stone and Billboard where you've been involved in? Like, how easy was it for you to kind of work in those two environments?
To be honest, they're very similar. So a lot of people don't realize this, but the brands are global. However, the operations in each country are independently owned. So it's not as though you work for Billboard. You own the rights to the brand in a specific market, and that lasts for a specific duration of time based on the license agreement that you negotiate. And you really do operate as a startup. You have to build your own team. You have to build, like, you don't just walk in and get a team of editors and writers and producers and content creators. You have to build that organically yourself, and you have to build your audience in each region yourself. You don't just walk in with, I've got 500,000 unique viewers every week or month or whatever. You have to build that audience. So at the end of the day, you have the benefit of having a global brand, yes, but operationally, it's the same as having a startup company that you just built yourself.
How did you find the balance? Because you've just touched on it there, um, knowing the audience, but in a culturally diverse country such as Canada,
Mhm.
how did you kind of get the all the cultural niches and all the sensitivities and knowing um, how did you get that kind of history? The understanding of knowing what the community wants and getting their fair representation out of it. Because like when you posted about Legit, I go the first thing came into my head. I go, she gets it, and I know that's from my community, but you're dealing with so many different ones. Are there people from those communities looking at your other posts and say she gets it as well?
Yes. And I think that that has a lot to do with how the rollout went for each region. So we acquired the license early in the year. I think it was April. However, we didn't launch the publication until October. And so we spent that 6 month period really diving into the communities, the niche music communities, the large label communities, the industry experts, sitting down, having meetings, saying, "Hey, we're gonna be bringing this. We're gonna be launching this. What are you seeing? What are the trends?" We went to all the labels, the record heads, etc., the A&R executives, and just listened to what the trends they were seeing and their perspective. Warner's a great example because they actually launched a Punjabi
Yumi,
subsidiary.
yeah.
Yeah. And SiriusXM just launched a channel as well. So there's a huge trend for sure. However, what's the next trend? And when we were launching Billboard Canada specifically, we could have had, many major high profile Canadian artists. If we wanted to reach out to the Weeknd's team or Celine Dion's team or whomever, we decided to make a statement by putting the top 5 Canadian Punjabi artists all on one cover, which was difficult in itself because there is a little bit of a rivalry with some of them. um, but we wanted to make a statement to say, we've done our research, we get what's going on here, and we were actually the first, like I should say they now. Billboard Canada was the first to do that, and to really sort of highlight the Punjabi community in the music scene. And I think, again, since I left AMG and Billboard in early July, they've continued to do a really good job on highlighting some of the local artists. They highlight a lot of francophone artists in Canada. There's a French speaking province called Quebec, and it's French first, English second. So they do a great job of really highlighting some of those talents as well. And Rolling Stone, specifically in the Canadian space, is Rolling Stone Quebec that they've acquired. So it's French first and focused on that francophone artist. So I think the team overall has just done a really good job at analyzing and understanding the communities.
When you reflect back, in terms of your time at those companies, what were the sort of biggest lessons that you've learned both personally and professionally?
Specifically, those companies or all companies that I was a part of?
Whatever you define.
I would say I'll take it more generically, and I'll go broader with all companies that I've been a part of. I strongly believe that transparency is key. So if you are a founder or you're a co-founder, or you're getting involved with some other individuals on a partnership basis, I think trust and transparency is key. I think being able to humble yourself and have difficult conversations, and not let ego get in the way of, well, I have this title, I have this brand, I've got all of this stuff. So, now you must listen to me. Authority is not given and respect is not given, it's earned. And I think it's earned through transparency and humility. So that would be both personally and professionally one of the greatest lessons that I learn and continue to embrace. If I want to go very specific to answer your question, personally throughout those ventures, I just trust your instincts. Your intuition will tell you everything you need. If something feels off, it's probably off. If something feels right, it's probably right. And I think if we want to look just solely on the personal side, what did I learn? I would say that people will always teach you, whether it be, in business or in life. And I think, again, the more you can kind of like humble yourself and remove any type of ego, and just listen to people, hear them out, take the time. That's one of the things that I always try to do, professionally and personally, is just spend time with people. As an entrepreneur, I've got people hitting me up on IG and LinkedIn and other platforms constantly, even young entrepreneurs like, hey, I have this idea, I'd like to pick your brain, you've got XYZ experience. I'll spend time with them. I don't know who they are. I'll
Mm.
spend an hour with them. I'll listen to their pitch. I'll give them my opinion. I'm not asking for anything in return from that. I'm curious and I like to hear new ideas. I like to be exposed to new concepts. And I think that bleeds both into my personal and professional career, where it helps me It helps me keep an open mind to different types of approaches, I think.
Mm.
Whether it be in my personal life or professional life.
I'm getting, I could be wrong. I'm trusting my gut here, but it feels like your gut is
Yeah.
so bankable, right? Because because it feels like, no, I'll ask this question. I've got about 15 different angles I'm going on here. I'm just trying to pick up I'm also evaluating it. Um, when you were talking, about knowing the right direction, do you feel that printed media and the likes of the Rolling Stone, Billboard, and charts and things like this is part of a legacy kind of media, and the future is going to somewhere else? And did you feel, I don't know whether it was clear to you thinking that it's time to exit now before you get forced to kind of change?
I did not personally feel like that.
Okay.
Uh, I I also still don't personally feel that way. I do believe that artists love to see a chart and a ranking. I think visual artists, because I've worked with a lot of visual artists, photographers, videographers, etc. There's something beautiful about having a tactical. I literally have like books, magazines, like right beside me, constant. There's something beautiful about having a tactile, something you can touch, physically touch and see. So I think from an artistic perspective, I really don't see that disappearing. And I think from somewhat of an ego perspective on the artist side of things, they want it, they're competitive. They want to see their name at number one. They want to be able to brag and say my track was XYZ or my photo appeared in Vogue, you know. So I don't think that that's going away. That wasn't in any way a part of my decision. My decision was wholeheartedly personal in the sense of I felt deeply compelled to build a company that is really focused on the next generation under 24 years old, mentorship in the arts and cultural media and entrepreneurship space. That's wholeheartedly where my decision came. It had nothing to do with whether I thought there was going to be a demise of something in the industry of music or print or publishing.
What's the biggest advice, the best advice that you felt that you've given to a young entrepreneur, especially when they're coming up with a new idea?
The best advice that I've given to a young entrepreneur, I mean, I keep kind of going back to this, but trust your instincts.
It's
Trust
that
your
gut again. It's that bankable gut. I think that's what you're gonna name your next company. Bankable gut.
And
Sounds like a
it's
restaurant.
that, but it's also don't be afraid to take risks and it's okay to fail. You know, people, I do podcasts and I do interviews all the time, and everyone often is really focused on, you know, the success that I've had. I've failed a lot. Like, and I'm
Oh,
totally
I was
open to
I was coming to
say
that bit.
I'm totally happy to tell people about the failures because at the end of the day, the failures give you knowledge, it gives you insights. Yeah, it sucks, you know, it doesn't feel great,
No,
but
they're the lessons.
those are the lessons, yes. And, you know, from failure creates opportunity. And then there's what's that old saying when one door closes, another one opens, or, you know, whatever. But I just think people are often too afraid of taking the risks and of failing. And so that I think is a very strong piece of advice that I give to a lot of young entrepreneurs.
Yeah, the kind of podcast scene in the UK, especially kind of like the Asian kind of space, is not
Mhm.
not as big as it is now. There should be
Yeah.
another 20 of me like trying to sustain and provide life to it, but there isn't on that side. But um, when I get asked that question, is I always kind of say like, have a go. It does.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't go wrong because you'll always learn at least one lesson out of it. There's been many times where I've really thought I'm gonna jack this off, like forget it, I'm done. There's nothing on there, but you'll always get an email, you'll always get a DM or something that just picks it up. You say it's the universe, it gives you kind of the energy around it. One of the other things that have come in, and I'm trying to blend this in and make a segue for it, is the tech and the AI side of stuff
Hmm.
coming into this world. What's your opinion of what we might be seeing in the next sort of, especially 5 years? The reason why I say that is today my Instagram's been full of Tupac and Michael Jackson AI videos. And it's the next Sora 2, I think it is, the engine that's come out. And I'm really struggling to know. I obviously know it's fake, but it is so
But it looks so real.
realistic. It's so good now, and art. We've had a few AI artists coming through as well. It's like, what's your opinion on that?
I love AI. I think a lot of people are scared of AI because there's this inherent fear that it's going to take over our jobs or our lives or take our careers away or this and that. But AI's been around for years. And this is the thing. It's almost like when cryptocurrency became, more widely known as a term. It had already existed and blockchain had already existed for like 12 to 15 years prior to it becoming, mainstream. We've been using AI day to day for over a decade. It's just now become more advanced so that we have these, caricatures, and the visual side of AI has now become more robust where you can create a virtual you, and you can create these virtual experiences and these AI experiences. And to me, AI is about efficiency. It's about understanding how to use the technology to make your life and your job or your application of how you're using AI easier. It's not going to replace things in the sense of like human power. It's not going to replace a person wholly. Maybe eventually in 15, 20 years, we're going to have robots doing more than what, certain humans can do. However, again, I think that that's an efficiency thing. It's a robot. It's built from a machine. So inherently it's stronger. It can lift more. It can do more. It can move more. So, warehousing and supply chain, again, they've already been using this stuff. The robotics that are built into these systems in the supply chain across the globe use AI. But now there's just better applications of it. It's more advanced. And the visual side of it is coming to fruition now where companies are putting these beautiful robotic human-like shells, if you will, on, the AI bot. I think it's beautiful, and we need to understand that there's an application for it that is meant to help from an efficiency perspective. That's my business take on it. Personally, again, I think it's super cool. Would I have a robot in my house? No, because I'm kind of old school and I like to clean, and like I don't even have one of those automatic vacuum things. Like I just
You ain't got you ain't got like a Roomba. It's called like
no. No, and I had four dogs in my place for a while. I used to have four dogs, and unfortunately three have passed in the past few years. So now I just have one. And even then they shed like crazy. I never had one of the Roombas. I just I don't know, I like to clean.
yeah. No, I think I've watched The Terminator was one of my favorite films ever. So
Great movie.
so
Yeah.
what that kind of the storyline of where the decision making gets taken out. I mean, when you use AI, it's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. I think
Hmm.
where I feel a little bit uncomfortable about it is when, especially kind of in the music, you can't tell now whether an artist, like I've seen Sid Musiala, for example, he
Hmm.
sadly passed away, and then you've seen people making new songs using AI lyrics to come through and using his voice going there, and it feels uncomfortable.
But it's been happening for years. I
Oh
mean, I
yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah. Oh, no, I agree. I just
back
think
in
it's more blatant.
it is. I remember back, gosh, this would have been like 2017, I think. Um, there were, I was with a company. I had sold one of my tech companies to a large out of home company, publicly traded company. And we were launching a massive community square, and we had all this digital signage, and we did a holographic performance. So the holographic performances included many artists who were deceased, and they were up on the stage dancing and performing as though they were right in front of us. And that's all AI. So I just think we need to, it has its place. Can it get a little scary? Sure. Would I buy a Tesla? No. Absolutely not. That's where I draw the line. I need to drive my own car.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is weird. I mean, I've got this Whoop 5.0, which kind of like t technology wise, it tells me my biological age.
Hmm.
And because I don't like it, I just skip it now. But it's actually telling me it's telling me relevant things around it. So, in terms of like the next 5 years, what do you see happening, especially in your line of work? That you're focusing on, and tell me a little bit about some of the the projects that you've been working on as well.
Certainly. So, what it's actually interesting. We haven't officially launched our companies yet, like publicly. So I'm talking about it openly. We're building strategic partnerships with various different um, art schools. So we have two partnerships currently with two of the major art high schools in marginalized communities specifically. So a lot of our work, particularly with the not-for-profit Future Society, is focused on marginalized individuals and communities. So we build relationships and strategic partnerships with the educational outlets, so high schools, colleges, etc. We have a partnership with the Toronto Police Services for awareness and such for the anti-bullying and anti-trafficking component. So we're working on building out the programming that will be year long. Our big launch event will be late spring, early summer. We're looking to do this massive sort of outdoor event that will encompass a very large fashion show with some major brand partners highlighting their collections for children and youth, as well as children and youth performances. So we're partnered with a lot of talent and singers, songwriters, artists, etc. And then under the for-profit side, which is the Megalomaniac, we actually have a talent division. So we are building our roster currently. We've signed a number of fashion models, so up and coming fashion models. And this is global, so it's not focused specifically in Canada. Both the for-profit and the not-for-profit are global. So we are currently working on building the roster of talent from a modeling, fashion art designer, and speaker perspective, all predominantly focused on youth under 24 is kind of our sweet spot because we want to ensure that we're giving them that mentorship and that leadership and that guidance that many of us involved in this organization never had. So we're quite excited for that, and that's what's up and coming. We will do two large events every year. So as I said, our launch event will be in spring, and then we'll do a gala in the fall. And then we'll have long-term programming that goes on a monthly basis. So with respect to the mentorship side, we're going to have something called like Future Fashion. So it's a mentorship program for aspiring fashion models of all demographics and genders. And we'll have future founders. So we'll bring in, entrepreneurs who are very successful to help mentor the young entrepreneurs looking to build their companies and their ideas, and future photographers. We have all sorts of stuff that we're working on.
Wow. I was just hoping to get new carpet in my house for next year, but it looks like the amount of projects you're working on is just, I mean,
Yeah,
that is skill in itself in terms of spinning so many plates and learning that it's okay that, to let a few of them smash because it's really hard and,
it's gonna
you
happen.
concentrate on it. I'm gonna ask you sort of a final question on this actually. Um, so this is a bandwagon podcast, and I give an opportunity to say, is there a bandwagon that you like to jump on, jump off, or is there anything that you want to get off your chest? This is your space to do so.
That's a cool question. Is there a bandwagon I want to jump on or jump off?
It could be
I'd love,
anything, politics,
I-
the whole anything.
I'd love to jump off social media.
That is so ironic.
I know.
What?
I
Why is that? Why is that?
I just like you can get so lost into it. It's a rabbit hole. You can just doom scroll for hours, and sometimes it's good and bad. Don't get me wrong. It has its place. I love, being able to have a platform to share my voice and my outlet and my, that part is wonderful. But I do find sometimes when you're not necessarily focused and you just kind of get into the feeds of content, you can really dive into a rabbit hole. For me, that rabbit hole tends to be I've got my English bulldog puppy laying beside me right now. It tends to be a lot of content about English bulldogs, and because they're so cute and silly, I could literally just watch that for hours and then I've wasted 2 hours.
Yeah, is that why then? Because sometimes your nighttime pictures of your view is,
Yeah,
I always comment, I get so jealous of it, and is that
beautiful.
because yeah, you've wasted hours on social media and you've just left with that there, so you don't get any sympathy for me from that one.
No, I also, I'm an early riser, so I wake up every day naturally between like 3 and at the latest, usually 6 a.m. I know I haven't set an alarm for years. I just wake up. So early in the morning, because I'm right in the heart of Toronto. So it's like picture living in the center of Manhattan, for those of you not necessarily familiar with Toronto. It's loud and it's busy usually. But at that time of day, it's so peaceful and it's so quiet. So in the mornings, I'll just go out onto my terrace and I'll make a tea, or I'll just, sit with my dog out there. And I love the city lights. I've always found something inspiring about city lights and mesmerizing. To me, it just seems like there's an array of opportunity. You don't know what's happening in these buildings, and it's a lot of corporate buildings, certainly a lot of condos as well. But I've always found city lights to be hugely inspiring. So that's why I love the view.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I've been to Toronto a couple of times, and you know, I think that was the first place where I found Tim Hortons, which
Oh
was
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which was a
Coffee.
massive, yeah, French vanilla. I found that there.
Okay. Oh, that's so sugary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it is from that side. And then I remember seeing some towers that someone was explaining to me. They were Marilyn Monroe's legs or something like this. These two
Oh
buildings.
yeah, that's in it's a little west of like downtown Toronto. It's they're literally called the Marilyn Monroe Towers. So
That's it.
it's like the curves of her figure.
Yeah,
They built the building in it. It's two towers side by side with her shape. They're condo buildings, actually, residential buildings.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I was quite amazed by that because in the UK everything's just up, square, and flat. That's it. Just no imagination at all. It stops
We
with the
have a
motorway.
lot of curved buildings. Like I'm looking out literally right in front of me, and there's a lot of square buildings, but there's several that have like a curved architecture on the top, and some look like they're twisting because of the facades that they've put on the outside. I think that's just because it's a really large city, and there's not a lot of historic buildings here. So the difference architecturally, New York, London, there's a great deal of historic buildings. And here there's a handful of historic buildings that they keep the lower facade, but then they'll build a tower on top of.
Mhm.
But I just think, probably the city bylaws and the building regulations are very different there in those markets than here. Like here, you can just destroy a building and put up a glass building. So they have free reign to be creative architecturally.
Yeah. I was also interested when I went there because I went from Toronto, I went to Vancouver, and my history as a drug worker, so in addictions and stuff, and seeing the consumption rooms and the and then seeing
Vancouver is a lot.
yeah, I don't know how much you kind of your thoughts on it. It might be a bit of an unfair question, but I kind of changed my thinking of it, because I was really pro for consumption rooms and stuff, and then when I saw it in reality on there, I just thought it could be done a bit better. It didn't
Really sad.
feel yeah, it didn't feel right for me that you had how it was kind of left, and I don't know. I haven't really visited it again around it, but what's your thoughts on it?
I would say. Toronto and Vancouver specifically do have some challenges with that. Vancouver more so than Toronto. Toronto has a different sort of housing
Mm.
and like shelter options. One of the things that I don't agree with, and again, controversial, but I don't know if they have this in Vancouver. I know they have them here in Toronto, but they have facilities that are clean injection facilities, which I understand the need for those with
Mm.
addiction to have access to clean um, items. I just think that the government could be doing more to build programs to stop the addiction versus enabling it. In Vancouver, I'm not certain because I haven't lived there. I've been there many, many times, but there is a street which the name is escaping
East
me.
Gram, I think it's East Granville. I think it
I
is.
think it is. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. It is one of the most sad experiences if you drive down that street, and it's to me it's just heartbreaking. So
that's the street that changed my opinion.
it's really, really heartbreaking. And my opinion is I just don't know what the government is doing to help facilitate, programs to prevent this.
Well, I know it's always, it's one of life's sort of challenges and stuff, and it does make you kind of reflect back on your own experiences and your own life in terms of what you're doing. But having an opportunity to speak with you and actually have that wealth of knowledge in terms of have that access. I think it's massive because I think when you do have that moment where you're trying to come off social media, I think it's really important that the wealth of knowledge that you have, you you've got such an opportunity to try and educate so many different communities and pass on your experiences. And I don't think we live in a world where people can actually tell you that face to face. So I wanted to just tell you that from what I've seen and how you've platformed when you didn't need to, that it didn't feel tokenistic is such a big thing. And knowing through your experience and your journey that you've gone through, I know I didn't touch on it a little bit more because I didn't. I don't, you've talked about it so many times, but I strongly urge everybody to kind of put in Amanda's name into YouTube, listen to her stories, and to go through it. And there's been no, feel sorry for me stories. It's just been get up and go. It's been get up and go to the next one, to the next one. And there's always a teachable moment that I felt in each part of your stories that you're able to tell, and your experiences of when you've gone into new companies. And I really hope that those people who are listening and watching will take the time out and actually have the correct kind of role models. And I feel that's what that you are in here, and that's why I wanted to kind of reach out to you and persisted with you for so long because I knew I needed to kind of get this in contact. So whenever you're doing your next projects, I really hope you reach out and just say, Rick, can you just help put this on air? Because I'll be glad to do that and get
I will.
people, those who are listening and my audience into connecting with yourself.
I absolutely will. It's coming in spring 2026.
Amanda, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.